we are still with the tariff bomb that Donald Trump has dropped, 25% plus penalty on India starting August 1st. Now, what are the political ramifications likely to be? And are there any options as India finds itself caught between a rock and a hard place? Are there any options that India can exercise? First up, let's bring the political reactions already out there and those expected later in Parliament today. I have my colleague Brijesh Pandey, input editor, News9, joining us this morning. Brijesh, there's a question that Srinath and I were discussing yesterday. Perhaps you would have the answer to that. How will Raga react to MAGA?
Well, I think Raga has already reacted, and ever since this tariff announcement was made by America, the Congress party has held a couple of press conferences. They have started tweeting about it, saying that how Prime Minister's friendship with Trump is going to bring the entire pharmaceutical industry and other industries to a standstill. He says that, it is the slogan called Ab Ki Baar Trump Sarkar, and the way Prime Minister had aligned himself to the political fortune of Donald Trump. The result of that close friendship is something which the entire India is going to pay a huge cost for. The Congress has already started hitting out at the government, saying this is a clear-cut result of a failed diplomacy of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So I think, today, tomorrow, we're going to see a lot of fireworks as far as this 25% tariff is concerned. And, one constant was SIR, on which, the opposition was boycotting and forcing adjournment after adjournment in both houses of Parliament. I think 25% tariff will be added to the other cause. So it's going to be a very stormy session throughout the day as far as both houses of Parliament is concerned.
Yeah, I think walkouts and adjournments is what is one of the likely outcomes, Brijesh. But let's leave it at that. Thank you for your input this morning. Srinath, let me bring you in. Are there any options available with India at this moment? Can India really now go ahead and negotiate? Maybe on the negative, but on the farm and dairy sector. Is that even on the table as far as India is concerned?
Kartik, hi. I think the challenge is farm sector is not on the table at all. And it's never been on the table for a very, very long time. So the reality is, if whichever party is ruling the nation would have the same premise that you cannot compromise sovereignty by giving up on agriculture, farm, dairy, and other sectors. I think this is also, let's face it, this is what we call the transactional politics, diplomacy. And in that, this is only the first round. And this is a hard negotiation tactic of the US. So it is not all over. And as we speak about the bilateral trade, what are the other sectors that we can probably give in? The challenge that if India really were to step up its complete regulations on, let's say, data and digital, and let's say if you were to bring in rules to say that any data has to be localized and stored in India, I think we are going to have a little more interesting bargaining ahead. But the challenge also is that we have a complete American monopoly on data and digital. Our servers data is stored on American AWS, which is an American company. If you look at the Indian payment system, nearly 85% of all payment flows of our UPI goes through 3 brands which are predominantly owned by the American entities. So it also was going to be a wake-up call for India that can we reform ourselves, let's say in the next 2 to 3 years, in terms of ease of doing business, in terms of looking inward to be far more self-reliant, at least in technology space. But let's come back to this particular trade tariff. The reality is we still have conversations, bilateral trade talks happening. And I think any political conversation saying that we have given in and given up, all of that, I think it's too premature. I think we'll have to wait and watch. There will be, in the diplomacy, we are seeing one big change in the Trump regime, that Truth Social seems to be far more accepted than even a White House press communique.
Right.
So that nature of diplomacy, I think it will be interesting. And I think I would support what the Indian government has very tacitly and very subtly said that, hey, we will hold on and we will talk. A lot of these will be backroom conversations from now till whatever is the final outcome.
All right. And I also want to understand from you what seems to be the political messaging here, Srinath, given the fact that Donald Trump, on the same day as he announced his 25% tariff on India, also says that talks with China are still on and what he calls a fair deal is in the making. Well, that seemed to be the stated intention again for the deal with India. But no tariff on China announced, a tariff of 25% plus penalty announced on India, given the fact that China and India are both part of BRICS and both are also importers of Russian energy. What seems to be the political messaging? And not just that, in fact, a few hours later, an oil deal with Pakistan. So, I mean, this entire friendship and this bonhomie comes into question between Donald Trump and Prime Minister Modi.
See, I think let's not mistake the US for so many decades. Let's not mistake friendship with what they actually end up doing. I mean, they want power, they want to be the global power, and the reality is they are a global hard power. India, for all its our efforts and claims, we are still a middle power, and we have a long way to go to catch up globally. But in that nature of things, what Trump has now shown is China, Pakistan, whatever. If I have to break friendship that India has with somebody else, or if I were to make India's an enemy's enemies is a friend, I mean, I think strategically he's doing that. Pakistan, if you remember, he said that he brokered the ceasefire. Then he said his family got into a deal to do cryptocurrencies exchange in Pakistan and all of that.
Right.
It clearly shows that the governance model. I mean, see, I want to be very clear here. A lot of times the Westerners think the governance across political sphere, across corporate governance in India seems to be lesser is what they claim. Look what's happening in the greatest democracy and the largest superpower in the world. I mean, the institutions seem broken. All the commitments, including, let's say, the multilateralism, completely broken. The tariffs are actually anti-multilateralism. Where is the conversation about dealing bilaterally rather than actually doing multilateralism? So
All right.
I think the rule of the games are changed under Trump. And let's not forget, any head of state is a politician ultimately. They have to win the subsequent elections. And that's
Right.
exactly what he's doing. So from his point of view, he's doing what is good for America or what is good for his politics.
Right.
And it's hurting us.
Right. Well, Srinath, of course, I think the question that now needs to be answered, and we will hopefully get an answer to that, is India's politics going to trump India's economic interests? And that is something that, of course, time will only tell. But thank you so much for joining us here this morning.
Thank you.